All right, hello, Fire Tech 101 students. This is the voice narration power of the PowerPoint for Chapter 10, Fire Department Organization and Management for in our Fire and Emergency Services Orientation and Terminology 7th edition IFSTA book. So I have to deliver this in a series of videos. The recording site that I use is only allowing about 15-minute increments. So this chapter is about 85 slides. It covers page 345 to 367 in the textbook and will probably take about 4 different videos. So we'll go ahead and get started with Chapter 10, Fire Department Organization and Management. All right, so our learning objectives. We want to identify fire and emergency services organizational principles, identify local government structures, identify types of fire department funding, describe fire and emergency services outside aid agreements. Identify challenges facing the fire service. Describe types of communication common in the fire service. Explain details of fire and emergency services incident command system. Then identify 3 major responsibilities of the incident commander during emergency operations. Identify fire and emergency services organization principles. So organization principles, departments should establish and follow policies and procedures, job descriptions, and organizational charts. An organizational chart is going to break down the fire chief into the different bureaus, the heads of those bureaus, and then down into operations. Operations is what most of us are going to be familiar with because that's where most of us are going to live. And then your policies and procedures, is going to outline how you are supposed to act and basically conduct business. All right. So your org chart, the chief is going to be the leader. In the department I work for, we have deputy chiefs that are in charge of the operations bureau, the fire prevention bureau, and the support services bureau. And then we have non-sworn staff that run our administrative bureau outside of the fire chief, who is the head of all of it. Okay. Under our deputy chiefs in each bureau, we have an assistant chief. And then from there, in our org chart, it's going to break down into the operations bureau, which has battalion chiefs, then captains, engineers, firefighters, and firefighter paramedics, right? So essentially your org chart is going to illustrate your structure, and it has that line of ranking authority, okay? Which I broke down. Here you see an example of an org chart with the fire chief and then their administrative assistant. So this one has an assistant chief. We have deputy chiefs of each of the bureaus, right? Operations, fire prevention, and then we have support services, okay? The assistant chief is higher than the deputy chief. In our department, the deputy chief is higher than the assistant chief. Some departments have division chiefs instead of assistant chiefs. So it really is kind of authority or jurisdiction dependent, I should say. The larger the department, the more complex the chain of command is going to be, and the more complex the structure is going to be. Okay. When you look at our operations bureau, we have a deputy chief of operations, an assistant chief of operations, and then the battalion chiefs. We have 3 battalions for 23 stations. Okay. So depending on the number of stations you have is going to depend on the number of battalions you have, so that you can reach a span of control. And like in Orange County, they have divisions. So because their department is so large, the division chiefs will oversee a certain number of battalions. Okay. So really the complexity of it is going to depend on the size of the organization, and the structure is going to be organization dependent as well. I worked for a very small department where you had the fire chief, you had 3 battalion chiefs, and you had your station level captains. The battalion chiefs, you have 1 battalion chief and 1 for each shift, which meant 3. So you had a fire chief, battalion chief, and then your station captains. Okay, so departments with numerous stations and personnel generally have a more complex chain of command with many different levels of command and responsibility. Unity of command. Every individual is going to report to only one person. Okay, so this reduces confusion caused by multiple or conflicting directives. This also enables our leaders to effectively direct their personnel. So your captain, you're on an engine, there's 4 of you on an engine or 3 of you, you're going to report to your captain. Your captain is going to report to a battalion chief. And that's simply how that goes, or some kind of chief officer again. So that unity of command, the principle, is each individual reports to only one person. Span of control, how many people can you effectively manage? So the number of personnel one can individually manage effectively, right? So there's this number may vary based on the assignment complexity. In some departments, they have lieutenants and captains at the stations. LA City has a captain 1 and a captain 2, and the captain 2s will be on the truck, the captain 1s will be on the engine. But again, you're supervising your crews. The general guideline is that each supervisor can supervise 3 to 7 subordinates, but 5 is your optimal number. All right. So that means your span of control. Like now, if you're managing too many people, you're outside of that span of control, and you're not effectively able to manage based on this principle. So again, span of control, 3 to 7 subordinates, 5 being optimal, and the principle is the number of personnel one individual can effectively manage. Our division of labor, how do we distribute the workload, right? So how do we divide our jobs into smaller jobs or smaller areas of responsibility so that everything gets accomplished? So this is used in the fire service to assign responsibility. It doesn't duplicate the efforts. It assigns a specific goal-oriented task and provides expertise ranging or regarding that assigned task, right? Discipline. It's an organization's responsibility to provide direction necessary to achieve goals or to achieve identified goals and objectives. And how is our direction given? Our direction is given through standard operating procedures, standard operating guidelines, directives, and regulations. Okay. And moving on to our local government structures. The governing bodies often make decisions that have an impact on the department's operations and services because they provide the funding and they will provide the structural chart. All right. So the structure of local government may vary, but the public should remain at the top of the organizational chart. Commission form of government: voters elect a board of commissioners who conduct the legislative functions. City council manager form, which is what I work in, but we also have mayor, city council with a city manager. All right. The voters elect a council to conduct legislative responsibilities. So mayor, council, which is truly what I work in, with a city manager, and the public, they vote in a mayor, and then also the city council members in different districts to govern the community. Fire districts, they're not directly tied to a municipal or county jurisdiction. They're state-authorized governing bodies established to provide fire protection and other emergency services within a specific area. That area could overlap with different jurisdictional boundaries and generally governed by a board of commissioners or trustees who represent the residents of that district. Most of what you're going to see is like a mayor, city council. When you get into Orange County Fire, because they have different cities, they have a governing board with a representative from each city on that governing board. All right. LA County, the same way. LA City has a mayor and city council. Those are the larger departments within this area. Fire department funding. Departments rely on public and private revenue sources. Funds are collected from state or provincial and local taxes. Those are allocated to finance operations. The governing body of the jurisdiction may maintain the ultimate control over fire and emergency services budget. So the way our budget works, our fire department internally works with the budget. The fire chief, along with the command staff, which is made up of our deputy chief and our deputy chiefs and our assistant chiefs, They propose that budget to the city manager. So they'll eventually go back and forth with the budget. They'll make their recommendations. They'll agree on the budget. The budget will go to city council, and they'll vote on that for approval. Some jurisdictions attach a tax within their boundaries to be held in a trust for capital improvements. Capital improvements are things like station improvements, building new fire stations, specifically to the fire department, right? Those would be our capital improvements there. Roads, some other stuff, or other infrastructure can be capital improvements as well. Other trusts may come from private contributions for use at the discretion of the department. We don't really have that capability because we can't really accept those private contributions. They've got to go through a different avenue or a different path in order for private contributions to be made to the fire department. Subscription fees. If you live in the city of Anaheim, you'll see this. They have a paramedic subscription fees. So some of the departments, they collect fees for EMS services, which is what that paramedic subscription is. Mitigating hazardous materials incidents, providing technical rescue, fire protection fees, permits, plan reviews, inspection licenses, and other fire prevention related fees, citations for code violations. Some of that comes through the fire department. Some of that comes through through the fire department via the Fire Prevention Bureau. Some of it will come through the building department. Kind of depends on where you work, how that's going to, where you work or where you live actually, and how those cities operate. Enterprise fund may be established for fee charging services with a separate account of cost and revenue. The way my city works, it goes through a general fund. Most of the revenue that comes into the city goes into the general fund, and the general fund covers all of the different departments within that city. So it covers public works, parks and recs, the police department, the fire department, etc. Fundraising, long tradition of increasing revenue through fundraising. Raffles, car washes, bingo games are common. We don't do this. Like I said, our city has, it's very strict on how revenue can come in. Okay. So people can't just donate. The fire department can't just donate or can't just have a fundraiser for the fire department based on the structure of our city and the local laws and ordinances and bylaws. Fire and emergency services personnel should understand the IRS laws before embarking on any fundraising activities. Now, our local, our union, they can do fundraising activities, but that's specific for them. It doesn't necessarily go to fund the fire department. Bonds, depending on where you live, you see bonds that are used to fund and support projects. A lot of the schools use bonds to increase their infrastructure or build new schools or add on to the schools. Usually issued to finance long life projects. Assets purchased with bonds should have the same or longer useful life than the time frame of the bond. And these normally have lower interest rates than other types of financing. Cannot be used to finance operational expenses such as salaries. So a lot of things that come in can't be used for salary. Grants and gifts. Sources include government agencies such as FEMA. We use FEMA grants. FEMA grants come into the county. Those are dispersed to the different departments. I run our hazmat program. Our hazmat program works off of a federal grant that is also known as UWASI. So anyway, or Port Security has a grant, right? So there's several grants that we'll use, but those are typically federal or state grants. Charitable and for-profit corporations give monetary awards to community organizations that serve the public. There are often one-time donations to assist with special projects or current needs. Grant entities usually require a formal application process, and there's also very strict stipulations on using grant funds. Again, we don't have a lot of charitable or corporate money that comes in. We're generally using federal or state grants. Applications are reviewed by the board that will make a funding determination. FEMA managed grant programs. I'm going to go ahead and stop this first video here, and the second video will get into the FEMA managed grant program.